Good evening everybody, welcome to Carrow Road. Norwich City have lost another game here this evening. They've been beaten 1-0 by Watford here, a late goal from Bayo, the difference, and Norwich City probably left with that ever familiar sinking feeling in their stomachs, and that feeling that's difficult to shift, that this team is being carried down the table by a lot of negative momentum and a lot of factors, which of course we will dive into over the course of this video. I'll try not to be too rambly, and I'll try not to be too long. So I was really intrigued actually. Let's start at the beginning. We'll try and work through it chronologically. And I was really intrigued when the team news came out, because like many of you, I would have watched Alan Russell speaking to my colleague Paddy Davitt and speaking in a pre-match press conference about how different a challenge this was to what Norwich City faced on Friday night against Reading, and yet they made one change that was enforced, or a couple of, I think it was one change, wasn't it? Kenny McLean out, Liam Gibbs in. So one change, and that was because it was enforced. So even though it was a different challenge, it didn't really feel like Steve Weaver, Alan Russell were really adapting to what they were going to face tonight, and it kind of felt like I don't know. It just felt a little bit confusing that he had come out on Friday and said this was going to be a different challenge, and so they needed to do things a little bit differently, and then named pretty much the same starting 11 bar one player. So that was confusing first and foremost. And I saw the team sheet, and this isn't me being clever in hindsight. You can go back and watch the team news live video that we did. I had real concerns that actually, because of how far Norwich want to push their fullbacks under these two interim coaches, that Watford would look to counter-attack, and they would just sit Sarr, Kalu and Davis up against basically the three that Norwich City leave in their defensive half, and look to turn the ball over really quickly. There were actually ironic chants towards the start of the game from the Watford fans about "we have no midfield," and that was referencing the lengthy injury list that they have at the moment. The new signings, Ismail Kone and Mateus, I think his name is were ineligible as well. They then got quite a few injuries as the game transpired too. So this was nowhere near kind of a full strength Watford team, the sort of one that they deployed at Vicarage Road when they beat Norwich City earlier in the season. But they had a game plan and they executed it really well, and there was a structure to what they were doing. They played a 3-4-3, they were happy to sit in, they pressed really cleverly, actually went man for man a lot of the time, and that disrupted Norwich. And even though Norwich had a numerical advantage in midfield, they didn't really utilise that in the way that perhaps you might expect. Again, I've kind of got issues with the way that Nunez and Sarah are operating at the moment. You've got one who in possession is looking to drop deep sometimes, and then the other one comes and then it just compacts what Norwich City are trying to do in that area of the pitch, so they can't progress it. Or they're both going high, and so you leave a massive hole that means they struggle to progress the ball, and you need to be a little bit more interchangeable than that and a little bit more unpredictable than that. One player has to go short, one has to go long, create some space, someone can drop in that way, and they just didn't do that tonight. And to be honest, it felt like Norwich City were exactly what they were, which is a team that are without a head coach at this moment in time, don't really have a clear way of playing, and haven't had much training time either. And it was really stodgy and a really hard watch again, particularly the second half. It's like watching, well, if you were going to sort of describe them as an animal, my son will love this, but you have to almost describe them as a big bad wolf. There's a lot of huffing and puffing, but they're usually being met with brick houses that they're really struggling to blow down. And that is a constant theme of what we're seeing, particularly at this place at the moment. And teams then are able to pick them off in the counter-attack and do so with pace and speed and power, largely because of defensive errors and individual errors from Norwich City at the back. And so there's a predictability about what they do, and there's a real formula and a really easy formula to utilise to beat them. And they're not disrupting counter-attacks in a good way, they're not preventing counter-attacks in a good way, and they're not really having control of fixtures with huge amounts of possession either. And look, in the last two games there have been more thrust, there has been a more willingness to attack. They've pushed their fullbacks on, they've played three strikers largely, they've tried to play Sarah and Nunez together to get a bit more creativity into the team. So the intent probably has been there, the energy has been there. I would even argue that the work rate and the determination have been there, and the endeavour to try and make something happen. But structurally they don't look particularly great, and there's a real lack of quality as well in terms of linking their spells of possession and constructing them into real key chances. Daniel Backman didn't have a single shot to save this afternoon. Norwich had one shot on target all afternoon. They hit the post for Gabriel Sarra and had a goal ruled out for a clear offside from Grant Hanley in the first half. But they didn't really threaten the Watford goal, and you know they're playing with three strikers at the moment, but to be honest they could have played with five strikers. What they're doing in terms of midfield and in the final third is not working to create key chances, and it just feels like they need a real injection of creativity. And that's all the more perplexing when, you know, you're Alan Russell, you maybe look behind you and you've got Kieran Dowell and Todd Cantwell sat on the bench, and irrespective of what you think of those two individuals, they are creative midfielders who have proven at this football club before that they can unlock defences and they can construct chances, and at the moment they're not getting a look in. And Norwich City are playing a formation with wingers, albeit they come a bit more the strikers have been coming a bit more central to allow the fullbacks to push on, but they're still in a system that plays wingers without having pace and power and differentiation in terms of their attack. They really struggle to penetrate teams and work the ball into really, really good areas to construct chances, and teams are really just kind of defending well and defending compactly and resolutely and in numbers, and they're making life really difficult for Norwich. And that was what it was today. I mean, Watford's goal comes from a corner. It gets cleared at the first phase. That then creates a counter-attack. I actually felt in real time that Asprilla took the wrong passing option. I felt he should have gone to his right. He went left instead with Sarr. Sam McCallum, it's not good. It's not a good watch. It's a poor error. He slides in. I think the ball is slightly behind him. I think Dimi Yanulis makes the same error, but it's a poor error nonetheless. And he almost pushes the ball for Sarr to run, and from there, as soon as he gets the ball across, there's only one outcome, and it's Bayo sticking the ball into the bottom corner of the net late on, and it's a crushing blow, and it's another game without a win here. This is their worst run of form at home. I think they've taken 6 points from 9 games. It's the worst run of form since 1999, according to NCFC Numbers on Twitter, who's a brilliant statistical account for everything Norwich City, so I trust him implicitly. And that includes the season in 2008 and 2009 when they were relegated. Their home form has not been as bad as this millennium. That's really concerning for a team that has aspirations of getting into the playoffs and getting promotion. It's 3 wins in 15. It's 1 win in 9 at this place. That run of form is quite frankly relegation form. It's so poor, and from a group of players that constantly wants to come out and tell us that they've got the best squad in the Championship. At the moment they're 11th, and to be honest, it only looks like they're heading in one direction, and that's downwards. And you can come out and say they had loads of possession, okay, but they didn't construct chances. Not really. They had one shot on target. That's not good enough for Norwich City at home in the Championship with the squad and the group of players they've got. And actually, quite a few times this season I've been asked the question, is this group as good as everyone thinks they are? And so I've consulted. I've spoken to neutrals who cover the Championship about this. They feel that this is a good group of Norwich City players. It's a good group of Norwich City players, but it's unbalanced. There's not a huge amount of pacey, exciting, different attacking players in there. Creativity, really. I mean, at Swansea, we were kind of all looking at Danel Sinani to produce that, and let's be honest, he's not of the standard that Norwich City need to win games consistently at this level. They lack a bit of X factor, they lack a bit of star quality, and if you don't have that, then you need to structure your team in a way to create chances even though you don't have that, and that is maybe why there is such a leaning towards a pressing system or a high pressing system to try and manufacture those chances. So it's really difficult to watch, because I was watching that game and actually thinking that it's like the Luton game that we saw here. It's like 4 or 5 games that we've watched here this season where Norwich have had a lot of territory, had a lot of the ball, half-puffed, goalkeeper hasn't really made a save, 1 counter-attack, 1 mistake, 1 goal, and that has been the formula all too often for what we've seen at Norwich City this season. But it's not the one they conceded, it's probably the goals they didn't score at the moment that's costing them. And I don't know why this place is becoming such a difficult place to play, and no one can point towards the supporters because they've been outstanding today and on Friday night. The drumming here has made a real impact. They've been positive, they've been wanting to see something and see a refresh and draw a line in the sand and move the narrative on a little bit, and they're not really being given a reason to do that, and that's really frustrating and really disappointing for everybody involved at the moment. And if anyone was under any illusions the size of the challenge that the next their new head coach of Norwich City will have, they shouldn't be. This group of players is in desperate need of a lift, and actually the way it is at the moment, if they're going to get themselves back into the playoffs, let alone automatic promotion, was long gone as far as I'm concerned. But the fact we're talking about the playoffs in itself is a really poor indictment of where Norwich City have got to this season, when the expectation was top 2. They're 20 points behind Burnley as things stand. The numbers are absolutely absurd and appalling for a group of players who should be doing better than this. And if they don't, and if a new head coach can't provoke a response, then it's going to be another year of Championship football. It's going to be another summer of churn and players leaving the football club. This is the start of a new year, and Norwich City have shown little impetus or little suggestions that they're going to be a completely different animal, if you want to lean on that phrase. And whoever comes next hasn't just got to fix the team on the pitch, they've got to fix the togetherness in terms of what the fans are feeling at the moment. They've got to galvanise it. They've almost got to grab this football club by the scruff of its neck, give it a good shake and sort it out from top to bottom, because it feels, and I used this word a couple of weeks ago, completely and utterly broken. The football on the pitch is not good. The atmosphere for large parts of this season hasn't been good. That's not the fans' fault. They can only respond to what they see. And the connection between those in senior levels of this football club and the fans haven't been good either. The scrutiny of decision making, the questions being asked, the explanations of why certain decisions are being made, they haven't been there. What I will say is Stuart Webber has done an interview today with Sky Sports. You can watch the whole thing on their YouTube channel. I would say to go and watch that in full before maybe jumping to any conclusions. Look, I write articles. I know how quotes can sometimes be, even though they're not intended to be taken in that way, you can read them in a completely different context to maybe how they're delivered. So for all full context, go and watch that and make your minds up for yourself. I haven't watched it yet, so I'm not going to pass any judgment on it, because obviously it's dropped while we're at a football match. I've got other stuff to do, so I'm sure we'll touch upon it at some point. But the headlines are that Norwich City expect to name a head coach by Thursday or Friday. That head coach should be in charge of next week's FA Cup game against Blackburn next Sunday, and then of course get a full week of work before Preston. And this Norwich City team increasingly looks like it doesn't need a few tweaks, it needs open heart surgery, and it needs some sort of revolution, some sort of unbelievable transformation to galvanise it and get it anywhere near where it should be and where it needs to be if Premier League football is going to become what we see next season. And at this moment in time, it's hard to come to any other conclusion that's not what we're going to see at this moment in time. This was an opportunity to jump fourth today with a victory. They are 11th, and look, the points in the Championship means that's not insurmountable, but the optics of it aren't great. Norwich City, first year back in the Championship after relegation, sitting in 11th in the Championship. There should be warning lights, alarm bells, people waving bits of paper that are on fire. Every kind of distress signal that you can imagine should be sounding inside this place at this moment in time, because this is a football club that is sleepwalking its way down the Championship table, and that's not good, and that's not great, and something needs to address that, and someone needs to address that. And obviously the emphasis is going to be on the new head coach to do just that, and it's a big in-tray that they've got, a big task, and they haven't got any time really to bed in anything. They need to come in, they need to get a tune out of this squad, and they need to get them up the table. That's easier said than done, particularly for a group of players that interim coach Alan Russell has just come out said have a confidence issue. And I think like a lot of you, I'm probably stood here right now going, how on earth have we got to this? And that probably is a question that needs more reflection and more thoughts before I can really answer it in full, and probably in longer form than this video. So yeah, another tough night at Carrow Road. Sadly, this is becoming the norm, isn't it? We're getting used to this a little bit. That was a game that Norwich City should not have lost. The way the game state was, the balance of it. I mean, it's a really sorry state of affairs at this moment in time, and the players need to look at themselves. The people inside this football club need to look at themselves. They need to work out what they're going to do about it. Obviously, in the short term, it's going to be a head coach, but that's not going to be a silver bullet that fixes all of Norwich City's problems, I don't believe. But look, winning helps, and if the new head coach can come in, have an impact. You've seen the type of situations at West Brom and Middlesbrough that Carlos Corberán and Michael Carrick have been able to engineer. That's what Norwich City need now. They need a spark of life from somewhere, and at the moment it feels like it's all resting on this appointment of the next Norwich City head coach. So we eagerly await them. Of course, all of our channels for all of the updates on that search. You can read Stuart Webber's comments. You can read Paddy's thoughts, our thoughts, Alan Russell's thoughts on this game. Yeah, sadly, it's not New Year, new NCFC. See where next. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your bank holiday Monday.